Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of Do You Wish to Continue? A podcast about all kinds of stuff. Gaming, mental health, pretty much anything under the sun that I can think of. It's been a while, so I just wanted to get back with you guys, and it's been about 3 months? Been about 3 months, I'd say. But yeah, it's been a rough one. Not having much luck in the old full-time, part-time job zone of the world. Everyone keeps saying we got jobs coming in, but it's like, I ain't where I am, so I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, figured, here's one of those late night, 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling ideas I had. And that's kind of the idea of let's play. Why let's? Because most of the time these are people watching videos of people playing video games. But it's usually, one person playing it and the other people just watching. So it's not let's play, it's let me watch you play. So it was just kind of funny, just a weird thought I had where it's like, why are they called let's plays? When I'm not playing it, I'm watching the other person play it. So it's not me playing it. So it was just one of those 3 a.m. ideas, here's another one. Why don't we have horizontal pivoting in our fingers? And what I mean by that is, obviously, I don't have a visual for you. But like, you can bend, we can bend our fingers and, all up and down and stuff, but we can't do it like left to right. And I know that's like why would we need to do that? But again, the same question could be, why couldn't we? I mean, I guess you could say it hasn't been a aspect that's been like evolutionarily beneficial, but then again, humans broke that link anyway because we civilized ourselves and have medicine and things like that anyway, so we're not really part of the natural evolution cycle anymore. But yeah, it was just one of those like, why don't we? And yeah, and this is no kinds of extracurricular substances were used within the construction of these ideas. It was just literally like 2 a.m. in the morning, and it's like, why doesn't this do a thing? I don't know. And then there was this was something I saw someone else made a list online. It was Black Nerd, was it Black Nerd Comedy, or I don't know. But he had made a list of a couple of his favorite kind of obscure 90s era cartoon intro songs. And it got me thinking, it's like, what do I remember from my time in the 90s of cartoon shows that I really, really liked, or like they had really good intros? And so I was thinking, SWAT Cats, which was one of the many probably furry influencing cartoons of the time. Had a badass jet that, was kind of like a weird mix of like the F-15 and just like a futuristic cyberpunk future where everyone's cats for, whatever reason. I felt like there was one on Disney when they were on ABC Kids in the morning show, when back when we actually had Saturday morning cartoons. Sorry, Gen Z, you don't get to have any of those. But it was they were all like, they were dogs, but they all had like these, I think the major color theme, they were all in like silver armor and stuff. And there was a German Shepherd who was kind of like they had the character traits very much as of like a Power Rangers, or more probably closer to more of the Super Sentai ideas of like the main character is, the guy in red or whatever, but then, the second in command's always butting heads with him. And in this show, it was a German Shepherd that was always like at odds with the main leader character. And then there was, the resident female character, which I for some reason I feel like she had like either a German or a Russian accent for some reason. And then of course there was the comedy relief was probably someone like a small, probably like a Chihuahua, and or there was a fat one probably, because that was always how it was structured back in the day. You always had the strong, courageous, morally straight as an arrow character, the morally corrupt, questionable second in command, the airheaded but still kind of allowed to be a badass female character, and then the comedy relief. That was just kind of how those shows were always structured back in the day. I don't know why. I mean, I guess they just thought that was the simplest thing to showcase to people, because that was the only character traits of people in the 90s, I guess, for some reason. But yeah, it was... And so I was trying to think of other ones that, I mean... Obscure ones are harder because, I just grew up with the same kind of like mainline television. I didn't live in Canada where you guys had like JetX and like a bunch of other more interesting like TV channels and completely different shows in some cases. So yeah, it was like, I mean, you could say like, I would say like, the Gummy Bears from the Disney afternoon. So Gummy Bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. High adventure that's beyond compare. They are the Gummy Bears. They are the Gummy Bears. And stuff like that. But yeah. Let's see, what else was there? I mean, I was a huge Sonic the Hedgehog fan, so of course I watched the Sat AM. And that show was a rare example of the intro being badass, and the show was also badass. Its sequel series, Sonic Underground, however, had an intro that was far beyond better than the show itself actually deserved. Ugh, Underground was such a disappointment. And it was irritating. It was almost the exact, like, it came out, maybe a year or two after they axed the original Sat AM. It was almost identical artwork. It had nearly the same identical voice actors. Hell, Jaleel White was doing triple duty on that, because he had to voice every single Hedgehog character on that show other than, like, the mother. I'm so mad. I don't know why they never made a third season. It was so bad. It was getting so good. They were setting it up for either it to be Knuckles that was coming in with Snively, or there was other fan theories that it was Ixis Nagus from the comics, that he was like an evil wizard dude. That was he was also supposed to be like trapped in the weird zone of end of whatever the king that was stuck in, because in the comics the king was stuck in another dimension because of Robotnik, but also this wizard was as well, and the king had made a deal with the wizard to keep his like sanity or something like that in this weird negative zone. But what happened was the deal, he got partially transformed into a kind of like Chaos Emerald material. And so when Sally and the Freedom Fighters like rescued him, they had to figure out a way to decrystallize him. But he was also like possessed by this wizard as when he had escaped, and so no one knew that until like they had healed him, and then they had to get his sword back for some reason. I think that was another one of the things, is they had to get his sword back, but he was still evil. And then Sonic used it and like banished the wizard out of him or something like that. I don't know. It's been a long time since I read the comics, the original Archie comics, which personally I still prefer, at least up until a point. They got weird after probably issue... I think I stopped like reading consistently after issue probably around 89, maybe 100. I think maybe I read up to 100, and then I was just done after that point. it just got way too complicated. It was like they brought in Sally suddenly had a brother, and he had some weird issue with her taking like command of the kingdom because the king was dying again for whatever reason, or stepping down. And then they kept bringing back Robotnik because they killed him off in fantastic, spectacular fashion just to bring him back, because that way they could draw him in the more Sega game Sonic Adventure style character. And also I didn't like the fact that they were being probably pushed by Sega to adapt more elements from that, because they like made some contrived plot reason as to why he suddenly got green eyes and his buckles on his shoes changed, and it was dumb. I mean, we got some cool moments where he went through like multiple like different states of ultrasonic, but it wasn't worth it when he ended up looking like the Adventure Sonic. It wasn't my aesthetic. Oh gosh. But yeah, let's see, what else was there? Everyone knows Doug. Well, at least did know Doug until Disney bought it out and ruined it. I don't know if anyone has that Discord anymore about Doug. You know, Quail Man, Skeeter, Penny. What was the bully's name? Roger. Yeah, it was Roger. Oh god, I remember that now, and just kind of memories flooding back in. Oh, Roger would have been. He was such a jerk. He was a great jerk, but I mean he was, you know, the atypical, you know, hates Doug for no real reason kind of thing, until they tried to expand it, and that kind of ruined it at the same time. Which is weird how that works. It's like, you know, you would normally invite depth into characters, but if you don't do it right, it just makes everything suck. Like, especially the Disney movie that they made, the Doug movie or whatever they called it, where they went and hunted like some weird lake creature, and they were all going off to, were they going to high school, or was it high school graduation, and they were going to college or something? I don't remember what that movie was about, because I didn't really want to watch it. And then everyone knows Fairly Odd Parents. I mean, that show was itself just full of really good musical numbers. The Shiny Teeth in Me guy, that song. My shiny teeth in me. Let's see. And then Danny Phantom. Everyone knows, like, Danny Phantom. Just early... it wasn't really a show I liked, but there was... does anyone remember Kaboom on Nickelodeon? It was kind of like newspaper cutout characters. That's the best way I could kind of like describe it, in terms of, because it wasn't claymation or necessarily stop animation, I don't think, but it kind of had that aesthetic to it, where it was like extremely like two-dimensional, flat, Paper Mario like kind of characters. Yeah, that's what I guess I would call it. It's kind of Paper Mario flat characters, and I think they were. Was it just like a bumper show, or did it have a plot? Gosh, I don't remember. Like, for those who actually grew up in the 90s, there was a couple of shows out there that were what I would call bumper shows, where they were shows in between showing. It was kind of like a block of time. Like, there would be like a 45-minute block, or maybe an hour block of time, and the show would kind of like do skits, and then you would go into an episode of a different show. Like Real Monsters, or Angry Beavers, or gosh, what else was there? Cat Dog, usually. Was that? Yeah, that was Nickelodeon. On Cartoon Network side, before they got lazy and just started syndicating the same 3 shows. Though that Nickelodeon pretty much does that now. Now it's like, if it's not Nick Kids in the morning, it's just SpongeBob all day, and then Friends all night. It's like all they show anymore. But they used to have programming, believe it or not. And same with Cartoon Network. They used to have more than Teen Titans Go and whatever the show about the kid in the brook, and he hangs out by the river with his friends. Oh, and the panda, or the 3 Bears. Yeah, 3 Bears. Again, each like that's it. That's all they have though. And like Adult Swim and Rick and Morty, which apparently that's about to go down the tubes too. But but back in the day when they actually had like a good chunk of shows like Dexter's Lab, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Powerpuff Girls, let's see what else was there. I mean, they had Toonami that actually had like multiple shows on it, and they had SWAT Cats. I think SWAT Cats was on Toonami for a time, and then what else did they have that was really, really good? Pretty much all their cartoon pushed content was really, really good. Where was I going with this? Shoot. I forgot what my original point was. But oh yeah, bumper shows. It was for Cartoon Network. There was the Barack Planet, I think, or no, it was just called the Barack Show, and then there was Cartoon Planet, and then okay, yeah, I think that was what it was. It was the Barack Show. I don't think that might have been just its own show, but Cartoon Planet definitely was. It was essentially a Hanna-Barbera, which that's a company I'm sure no one knows anymore. It was a Hanna-Barbera kind of block bumper show where they would do skits with Barack and oh god, what's his name? It was essentially, there's a show called Space Ghost, and it had a bunch of villain characters, and they usually would do like parody shows with a lot of them. There was a late night one when Adult Swim was in its very early stages called Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which was a parody of an actual radio show called Coast to Coast, AM Coast to Coast, and it was actually a paranormal and just weird freak show kind of radio program. It's I don't think it's running anymore, or if it is, it's probably moved completely online because AM is pretty much dead. But yeah, and so in these shows they would just do the skits, and then they'd show like a quick 10 minute episode of a Hanna-Barbera show, usually Space Ghost or Jabberjaw or Josie and the Pussycats. There's another name no one knows. Dune Buggy, Great Ape, or was it Grape Ape? Might have been Grape Ape. Hanna-Barbera was one of those companies. They tried so hard to be like Disney or like Warner Brothers, and they just put out so much so fast, and it was always low quality. The only real success they had was pretty much just the Jetsons, the Flintstones, and Scooby-Doo. Those were the only three that really stuck, that were the big ones. And the only reason anyone remembers the Jetsons and the Flintstones is we know Fruity Pebbles is still a cereal, so we all know the Flintstones. And the Jetsons were just the Flintstones, but in the future. So the Jetsons are only barely hanging on. Oh, God. Yeah, I could talk about just old TV forever. But how about I move on to some actual video game things? I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed with my Switch because the micro SD reader, either that or the SD card itself, crapped out. I tried replacing I Amazoned some replacement readers, and one came and the card, I don't know, the whole thing was off center when they glued it all together, so it wasn't going to fit. And then the other one I got in there, I think I installed it correctly. I mean, it's just the one kind of pressed down leads connector, but even that one didn't register my card at all. So I got cut off from like 90% of my games, which is annoying because I was still playing Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and they're doing title updates on it still, and I can't play any of it because the base memory of my Switch is too full of Minecraft and Generations Ultimate, and like and then all the save. Luckily, I have all the save data on the Switch side. I just had all the programs on the memory card side. So, but at this point, I'm just gonna wait it out until the next thing they come out with the next generation, because I think it's coming. It'll at least get announced this year. I'm 80% sure they're gonna announce it this year. They even said that after Tears of the Kingdom, that's it. That they're done with major first-party titles, and they had announced Pikmin 4. We have Metroid Prime 4 coming as well at some point. So I think those two, and probably an upscaled version of Tears of the Kingdom, are probably the launch titles of whatever their next generation console is going to be. That's my guess. And my hope is that it's, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that it's backward compatible with Switch. Usually their handhelds are, like how the DS and the 3DS were backward compatible, and how the DS was backward compatible with the Game Boy Advanced and Game Boy. I'm hoping that they're at least smart enough to do that for the Switch and whatever the Mark II Switch is, or whatever they end up calling it. Maybe they call it Switchback or something, I don't know. Or Super Switch would be nice, but then you'd have to, but then the acronym would be SS, and that probably wouldn't be great. So I guess you could say SSSS for Nintendo Super Switch System. So then it'd just be TSN or NS. But that would be kind of obnoxious. And then let's see, what other games Tears of the Kingdom I'm pretty hyped for. I wish I had newer other systems to play, but honestly I don't have the time, and I don't have the TV for it. I have a PS4 that I got off my sister, but I don't ever play it. I usually use it for Netflix. It's just too hard for me to read a screen this small, and it's not a small screen, or at least at the time it wasn't that small screen. It was a 52-inch. That's not that small, but it's like mounted on a wall and like on the other side of the living room, and so it's too difficult to read small text, because games for some reason very few of them have bothered to include text scaling for those who have vision issues. I mean, we all get hypered about color correction for colorblind folks, and that's great, but it's like, well, what about those who have just regular seeing issues? Unless I have like a 60-inch television, I'm not going to be able to read anything, and I like playing RPGs, so that kind of sucks if I can't read anything. What else was there? There was a survey, I guess, put out, but it's only in Japanese, which is irritating, from Square Enix, that they want to know what other like franchise game you would want them to like do the HD 2D remastering thing to, which personally I'm done with. I'm tired of it. It lost my attention pretty much after I tried playing Octopath Traveler, and all it was the 2D graphics smeared with solar flares, and I was done. It was the same issue I had with frickin' Star Trek 2009. It was just solar flares and simplistic coloring. It was just ugh. But yeah, personally, if they were gonna do one, I'd want remasters of Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and Advance 2 that were on the Game Boy Advanced and the DS. Those games were really, really good. I don't know if I ever even finished A2. I think that one had a couple issues that kept me from doing it. Also, I was like a senior or junior in high school and just got so busy with other things, I don't think I had time to focus and kind of better strategize in a game like that. But I'd like those games back. I really do. Advance was really, really good. And I know people prefer the original Tactics, and I tried to play that, but it was so slow. And it was just very, very bare bones. Advanced was, I know it's Advanced, but I always say Advanced. It flowed much better. It was much faster. It was a much smoother gameplay loop, in my opinion. Plus, I like the characters, and it was a little bit more interesting than just simply, oh, here's some fantasy characters fighting and having a civil war. It was regular kids that suddenly got warped into the world of Final Fantasy, and like the one kid didn't want to leave, and the one girl didn't want to leave, and the main character was like, no, we don't belong here. What the heck is your guys' problem? I'm sorry your home lives suck, but we need to go back. And so it was kind of like the whole time was you guys... And if you think about it, it was kind of like a reverse isekai. Is no one died, but no one wanted to go back, but the main character did. And so you fought the entire game through fighting with the other main characters who wanted to stay in the world, in the new world, rather than go back home. So that was kind of cool. That's why I like that one. The second one I think I didn't like as much because it was just set in the world, and I don't think the main character got like isekai'd into it. I think he was just part of that world, and then he wanted to join the clan wars, and then I just didn't at the time, just wasn't interested in doing the clan warfare thing. I liked fighting the monsters. I didn't like fighting like just regular human characters, because usually the human characters were a little bit too buff. Some of the monsters certainly could be, and judges and stuff. I didn't like having to fight the judges. In the first one, it was okay because they were just like bosses every once in a while. But in A2, like they were a lot more of a pain in the ass. From what I remember, it's been a long time since I played that one. And though it's not it's not Square Enix, but I would really like either a new Golden Sun or like just a new version of the original. Is it 3? Yeah, there's 3 of them, right? There's Golden Sun, then there's the second one, which it follows immediately after the ending of the first one, and then there's the time skip in the third one, where it's the children of the characters from the first games. I'd like to go back and play those ones because I didn't get through. I don't think I had the second one because you could. I felt like there was a way you could link the first and second one together with like a code or something, or if you had save data or something like that. I know they were like on Game Boy Advance, and I think that's what it was. Wasn't the second one. Well, the third one was on the DS because I remember the Psy Energy stuff. They integrated touchscreen stuff because they had to. It was on the DS. They had to do touchscreen stuff onto it. But I feel like there was a connection between the first 2 games beyond just the fact that it pretty much takes place immediately right after the other one. But those had really good stories, and yeah, I'd really like those ones to come back or have like a sequel or maybe just a remake, because I feel like I don't know how you would make a 4th one. Oh gosh. Well, I'm at 29 minutes, so I think that's probably long enough for at least this podcast. But yeah, thanks for if you hanged out and were listening, and cool. I'm gonna try to keep these up or try to get it going again. I do have a job interview next week, which is nice, so we'll see how that goes, and if maybe by the grace of the gods in the universe, I'll actually get a job. And maybe I'll have more to talk about. Or at least be more, I don't know, less depressed about everything, considering my life has been at a standstill for the last 2 years. Well, 2.5 years, it feels like, actually. Anyway, drink your water, have a good day, have a great weekend, be safe, don't drink and drive. Yeah, and be kind to each other and to yourself. and take a bath. Bye.